So this is today. Today is yesterday, and tomorrow is also today.
You traveled through time to the present.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think you get how time travel works.
It's like we're stuck. You know, like a needle on a scratch record.
I wake up every day right here, right in Punxsutawney, and it's always February 2nd.
It's one of those infinite time loop situations you might have heard about.
It's a thing where the same day keeps happening.
Time.
Slow down! What are you, in a damn time loop or something?
Well, it's Groundhog Day again, and that must mean that I'm Professor Robert E.G. Black, and I'm here with Dave Pallas and Sean German from Groundhog Minute, here to discuss Groundhog Day again. Still, welcome.
God. Honestly, it's when you sent me this, I'm like, this is a trip back in time, man. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's been how many years since you would have covered this minute?
God, I don't know,
like
four? Yeah. God, I remember just being in my little crappy apartment, like talking to Sean about our initial plans, and like, oh my God. It's honest to God, it's like going through it's that scene in the movies when they go through their old wedding photos and like yeah, they get their wedding footage and stuff, and they're like on the couch, like, what happened to us, and oh, remember this, and everything was perfect. So it's like going through this.
Yeah,
we were so young then.
God,
what happened?
So what is your experience of this film?
All right. I'll say that, enjoyed the film before all the projects and the minutes by minutes. Definitely enjoyed the film. Obviously, I enjoyed Bill Murray in this. I think it really just came down to I remember just Sean was posting about Groundhog Day, and I was like, who is this son of a bitch who keeps posting about Groundhog Day? And I'm like, I'm watching you, Chief. I'm watching you, buddy. And then eventually we were just like, he was like, what, do you want to do it? I went, oh, like, yeah, I'll do it. Like, I like to be out.
You want to do it?
That was my perspective. And then we did it.
Yep. And if not for the two of you doing that show, I might not be doing a podcast right now.
Oh my God. Think about that timeline, Sean.
Yeah.
If we we're like, that guy who did that blog about Groundhog Day, should we call him? And we just never did. Like, what would happen?
What if? Yeah. What if we never called Robert Black? That's amazing. So really, what if Danny Rubin replied to me or replied in the affirmative when I emailed him about my podcast?
Then he might not have been on mine. Exactly.
And he came on Groundhog Minute instead of the Groundhog Project. Who knows? But I mean, this is the film that got me into podcasting. I've told this story before, but quickly, my brother, Brian, who does a podcast with me now, he introduced me to this kind of movie by minute format with Star Wars Minute. And instantly, like, I knew, like, this, like, I want to do this movie. I want to do Groundhog Day 1 minute at a time. And that's, wasn't the first podcast I did, because I wanted to do it right. I'm like, when I do this film, I want to have some experience. I want to be, not good, but maybe not so bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is why I did any podcasting. The reason I bought a microphone was specifically to talk about this film 1 minute at a time, which I did. And in true Groundhog Day fashion, I'm here. I'm doing it again.
Yeah, at least in part. And I'm sure I'll have you back again, because I have committed now to covering these three films for a couple years, once a week
Yeah.
So it'll be a while. Of course, I did commit to this film for a year before, watching it every day.
Yeah. No one can say you're afraid of commitment.
No.
God.
Yeah.
Now, minute 2, of course, is fairly early. It's our first time seeing Phil on the screen, because we just got titles and clouds last time.
Yeah. We get the tail end, a little bit of that Nina Rota-esque score.
Oh yeah,
that was going on, over those clouds and sky, and we meet the man, Phil Connors, doing what he does.
And I did note this time we hear his name first,
Mhm.
and he says it, and we see his hand in this big open space before we see his face.
Yeah.
So he's introduced gradually, not slowly, because it's all in this minute.
Yeah.
But I like that we hear his name and we see this blue background. And of course, he says he had the question last minute, was all we got. Somebody asked me today, Phil, if you could be anywhere in the world, where would you like to be? He answers, and I said to him, probably right here, Elko, Nevada. Although he says probably right here, and we see his hand on a big blue empty space. So I think it's his own fault, all of this.
He just wants to be in a big blue empty space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he says Elko, Nevada, our nation's high at 79 today, which is not true. Elko, Nevada's average temperature in February is 41.
What was that year though? Was it a warm?
I believe that year it was 43. I had it in
Okay.
my blog from a different source. It was not hot. I don't know why they picked Elko, Nevada. That's one thing I've never figured out. I should have asked Danny that.
Danny.
If this line had been last minute, I would have asked him.
Danny?
Yeah. Well, I did wonder about that. I don't know. I didn't look up specifically where Elko, Nevada is, what part of Nevada, or what the weather might be in February. But I thought that was odd because there's areas further south from Nevada, the New Mexico, Arizona, and then you got Hawaii. You've got other areas that get warm, the southern tip of Florida and so forth. Maybe Phil's not such a great weatherman. Did you ever think of that?
I think this minute and the next suggest he is a good weatherman.
Yeah.
He just doesn't like it.
He just doesn't like it, but he's good
I
at
think
it.
he's good at it.
Yeah, he works the blue screen.
Oh yeah,
he's got that part of the job down pat. Now I noticed something, and it's weird for a film that I've seen so many times and talked about in great length, that I can still discover new things. We actually do see there are monitors on both sides of the blue screen. So no matter which way Phil is facing, he kind of sees what's on the blue screen.
Yeah.
He can see what he's pointing at. But this is interesting, kind of going back to what we talked about the previous episode. We were talking about a different film, but we're talking about Ex Machina and artificial intelligence and computer learning and vision and cameras. And we spent a significant amount of time this minute not looking at Phil, but looking at a TV screen with an image of Phil.
Yeah, after the blue screen, we also see a shadow before we see him.
Yeah.
Ooh. We cut to, it's not even the image from the monitor. It's the camera pointed at the monitor. So we're seeing him through a screen. So an extra disconnect as he does his job fairly well.
I mean, at least for some of this, he's looking at the screen. So we're looking at a screen with an image of Phil Connor looking at the screen
that
with
we're
the
looking
image of Phil Connor.
Yeah.
That we're looking at.
That's a very that's a very Bill Murray thing. Watching Bill just watch himself.
Oh,
getting high on his own supply.
It's his favorite person in the room at any time. Sure.
And I actually don't have notes on his some of his jokes here because I've written about him extensively before. Out in California, they're going to have some warm weather tomorrow, gang wars, and some very overpriced real estate.
Yeah.
Up in the Pacific Northwest, as you can see, they're going to have some very, very tall trees.
I wonder if maybe that's the bit. Like when you watch the Pittsburgh Action News, you watch Phil just completely lie to you. Like you can't, like maybe like the data right there, because you never see what it says on the screen. So we have to say when he says the nation's high, we're like, well, no, that's obviously false, but that's just Phil Connors for you. Just
comedy weather.
Just not even care. Yeah.
This is not
Phil
necessarily
Phil.
the news weather report.
Yeah. Imagine just like you're watching the weatherman and like the stats are correct, but he just doesn't acknowledge the stats. And you're like, so you look at the numbers, you go, okay, it's gonna be sunny tomorrow. And then like, yeah, Phil just completely lies to you about what's actually going on. You're like, that's a good chuckle. So you get a little entertainment out of it.
Nice.
But you can't take what Phil says at face value.
It will be clear across the Rockies and the Great Plains mostly, but look out, here comes trouble. And this is when he blows the clouds into the area, which again, he's responsible for his own problems. He just put the storm in position.
This is because later on he'll say he believes as the weatherman, he makes the weather.
I make the weather.
Exactly. He does. He just did.
Yeah, he just did.
He put the blizzard there.
Yeah, I don't know why he says it's going to skip. I mean, I don't know. Then again, maybe I should.
Yeah, from the look of the screen, it's not.
Like it looks like the entire North Atlantic is going to get hit with something.
That front is really big.
Yeah.
But look out, here comes trouble. Oh boy. Front coming our way. Look out.
It's like yeah, Virginia to like New York City is probably just going to get there. It probably all got snowed in.
Well, it's not that far because it's only, so he says it's going to hit Altoona, which is about 90 miles east of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's, you know, if you're riding your bike or you're skateboarding, whatever, that's kind of far. But, you know, talking about climate, that's not that far. And then and then Punxsutawney is even further east. Like it's very close to Altoona. So later on, so I mean, here he's saying, oh, that the snow's going to miss Pittsburgh. That's fine. But then later on, he's like incredulous that the blizzard might hit Punxsutawney.
Yeah.
It's like, you said it was going to hit Altoona. You're not that far off.
Oh my God, you're right. It's only 55 miles.
Yeah.
Also, his news report isn't just for Pittsburgh. That's not how big city news works.
Yeah, us. No, you're absolutely right. The us. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's going to be like a regional. Yeah, not every little town.
Yeah, he says
around
close
Pittsburgh
call
is gonna have
folks.
their own
Like
station. Yeah.
those people don't matter. Altoona doesn't matter.
Yeah, Altoona.
Yeah,
doesn't.
people. Yeah, exactly. Close call, folks. People out Altoona. Oh, your week gets slammed. Get the shovels out.
Yeah.
But yeah, God, it's so funny how, yeah, you're right. They're like, he's threading the needle as if like Pittsburgh is like, you're barely going to miss it if you're going to be close. Yeah.
You said it, Dave. Like people, they tune in to the other channel. Like they know, like if you need to know the weather, you go to channel 7. If you want to be entertained, then you go to Phil Connors on channel 9. Like people are not here for the weather. They're here for the quips, for the tall trees and gang warfare and you know, all that stuff, you know. So, like you said, you know, like he can do a good weather report. He's just so jaded and bored with it that he's you know, he's having fun.
But he does
He's trying
also
to make
explain
fun.
it though, because you know it's cold, frigid Arctic air. It's big mass coming up out of the north. It's going to meet up with all this moisture coming up out of the Gulf. It's going to mix together at high altitudes. And cause some snow.
That is actually pretty nice. Like that's a very like explain it to me like I'm high weather. Because you're right. A lot of meteorologists are like high front, low pressure makes a lot of pressure. And you're like, I don't know what that means. Pressure, like sinus pressure, like what kind of pressure are we talking about? And then they just get to the numbers part. And then the next screen is like numbers, temperature. Okay, I got that.
Yeah.
And then like little symbols. Oh, that's a rain symbol. I'm gonna have rain.
And then he proceeds to walk away after saying close call, folks. Let's take a look at the 5-day, which I guess he's memorized or he's just making it up. We don't know.
Oh, you're right. Because usually they'll stand there and then the screen changes to the 5-day forecast. But
he uses that time to walk to the desk.
But I'm like, as he's leaving, I'm watching the screen, and it's, I think they're doing a graphic fadeaway because you can just about see the Action News logo of the map do that like boxy flip away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they're flipping them, I guess, just back at her at the desk, which would be weird to just kind of like box it. And it's like he's just walking on the screen. It is the you know, whoever the programming editor is like, I can't just do it this. Like, I don't know, they just project it over his face. Like
so they fill up the screen and he just leaves. It's nice because he's good at his job and he's a smart ass. We don't yet know that he's a dick. So this minute he's still a good person, I think.
Yeah, no, he'll be a good person until next minute. Is when we find out.
Next minute we find out he's a dick.
He makes it all the way to minute 3 of the film. And then we can start hating on him.
Yeah.
Now I thought this was weird. The credits that come in this minute, but they don't start until 39 seconds in.
Yeah, there's a gap.
Yeah. Is that just so as the audience, so that we're focused on Phil, that we're not distracted?
I assume visually that was the point, and they didn't want to put, I'm forgetting now where they put them, because I didn't put in my notes which ones went over the blue screen, if any. Because maybe they just didn't want any on the blank space, even though that's a good place for credits.
Yeah.
They want us to focus in on what he's doing. And then we get some of the other actors, but I'll talk about actors later unless you have something specific you want to reference. I'll talk about them when they show up on screen, not their names.
What do you have anything to say about Stephen Tobolowsky, Sean?
Great guy, yeah. I mean, Tobo's a great guy. Actually, reach out to him. He might do your podcast. I was,
I've met him. He was very nice. So yeah,
I had a chance to talk with Tobolowsky just before Groundhog Day 2021, and he wasn't on mic for the podcast, but we ended up doing a special episode where we talked about what he had talked about with us to go up a level. So if you want to hear me talk about Tobolowsky with Dave, tune in to that was a special episode of Groundhog Minute at groundhogminute.com. Always be plugging.
Yeah. Anything else on minute 2 specifically?
Let's see.
This is a warm blanket for me. That's all I gotta say about this. Just watching it, just be like, man, God, Phil's in for such an adventure.
Yeah. And this is really nice. This is one of the things, talking about a film that we've all seen and talked about a lot. This introductory section, before we get to Punxsutawney, before we even get into the van, these first few minutes, this is the part of the film that really gets better for me every time I watch it.
Huh.
This time we get to spend with Phil in his, everyday natural habitat. I don't know why, for whatever reason. Maybe I think like the first time I didn't really think that much. You like kind of want to get into it, or I would want to get into it. Let's get into the loops. Let's get to, Needle Nose Ned. Let's get into the fun.
Yeah.
But then kind of watching it more and really appreciating just the kind of setup, the getting to know Phil, introduction into this character in this world. It's a nice way to start the film.
And honestly, like watching this beginning makes me think about how I know the weirdest things I did. Like I did that third act twist in the podcast where like I didn't like the ending of the movie,
Mm-hmm.
but it's because I got so in love with Punxsutawney and Phil that I didn't want the ending just to be like a love story about him and Rita.
Yes.
I wanted it to be like him and Rita now can experience a new day together, and he's happy and he's excited to be sharing with her. And I always want to know, like, he says, yeah, let's move here and stuff. But it's like, I want to know what they do the next day. I almost want like Phil to be sad that he's leaving Punxsutawney. Like I just want the ending to be more. I just want more. I want to see him almost like, it sounds weird to like say like I want him to be sad when at the end of the film, but it's like I want him to almost be sad that like I have to leave Punxsutawney for now, but I want to come back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
With as long as some people say he's been in the time loop, I don't know if he'd even register the difference at first. He'd be so confused.
That's true. Yeah.
Like a new day would be weirder than the time loop probably was in the first place.
Yeah. I know we talked around it, but that Palm Springs movie,
Mm-hmm.
the sad part about that is that Andy Samberg's character had been in the loop so long, he doesn't remember anything. Like, he doesn't remember what life was prior to this.
Right.
And that's kind of, that's like the worst sad thing. It's like his memory of what it was beforehand is like,
Yeah. I mean, there's a certain optimism. I mean, there's a lot of optimism in the film, but that particular optimism where just being trapped in this loop and repeating it, that you go crazy, you go suicidal, you kind of reach the end of your rope, but you loop around. If you kind of hang in there, eventually you come back around and you become sane again.
Yeah.
Kind of pass through the other side of the insanity, which I don't know how realistic that is. If you could be in this situation, do you come out kind of normal at the end the way Phil does, or is he normal? Is it just, does that wear off? And does it become like Inception, like the people that they don't know if they're in the dream or not? They lose the ability to tell. Does Phil, everyone else is like, hey, it's February 15th, guy. And Phil's going, oh, it's Groundhog Day again. Does he think he's still in the loop even when he's not?
He still does the same things every day.
Yeah.
And they all just humor him.
They'll just
all the locals.
Yeah. He's out there at Gobbler's Knob. He's the only one. He's like holding an old microphone that's not plugged into anything. They're like, yes. Yeah. The Groundhog. Yeah. He saw his shadow again this year, Phil. There you go.
Speaking of Palm Springs, for example, we have a segment for this show, Time Loop of the Week, where we can talk about other time loop things.
Most of life is just junk, right? It's filler. And then there's these moments when all the randomness turns into something perfect. It's like life's dropping all the bullshit just for a second to show us how amazing it could be all the time if it wanted to.
I don't know. I think maybe we're supposed to become like better people. Though I honestly don't even know how that could be possible.
Ever think about it? We must miss so many of them. All those tiny perfect things are just poof, gone, lost forever. But not today.
That is a disturbingly inspirational idea, Mark.
It's a perfect day. You couldn't have planned a day like this.
Well, you can. It just takes an awful lot of work.
Time.
The last revision is what counts, apparently.
What if we found them all? All the perfect things in this one town, in this one day. We could collect them.
So what is either one that's worth watching because it's great, or even one that's horrible? I mean, there's some bad ones out there for either of you.
I say, since we're on the topic, I say Palm Springs. I enjoyed it. Maybe I wasn't a big fan of the ending because it was like you have to atomically blow up at the right time. And I was like, you know what? The movie falls apart when you start like having to like, I have to quantum science answer it.
Well, yeah, it became science fiction.
I think that's what I like. I think I like the Groundhog Day where it's some kind of higher power ethereal thing where it's never explained. We don't know what magic or dark arts is doing it, but at the end, we're a better person. At the end of Palm Springs, if I remember correctly, it's like they got out and they leave the information for what's his name? J. Jonah Jameson actor. I can't remember his name right now. For him to do it. And then, it's like, oh, they'll break the loop. And I'm just like, I don't know. I guess just when they started getting too sciencey and trying to explain it, it fell off for me. I kind of like the ethereal, be a better person and you'll break the loop. Like, I don't know if they actually like learned any lessons.
I think we'll call that a Connors loop, this kind. And I need a classification system if I'm going to cover different time loops. So a Connors loop is that one that it just happens.
Connors loop is a morality one, whereas the Palm Springs ones is just like a science quantum loop where it's like you don't have to be a better or worse person as long as you just know the science of how to blow up at the same time that you enter the portal and break the loop, but you leave it.
I actually thought, Dave, that you would take the opportunity to talk about Dark.
Oh, God, Dark. We don't have the time.
But that is a different kind of loop because it does, despite the characters saying it, the loop does not repeat.
Yes, it's cycles. It's not a loop. It's like a cycle. It's like
it bugged me in like season 3 when the character's like, we need to save all those people from going through that over and over. I'm like, they're only going through it once.
To you, it feels like
because they don't remember it.
Yeah, to them, it feels like this is happening 1,000 times. But I think it's more just like a roller coaster where each loop kind of goes back to where the first loop is, like, but it's a separate loop. It's hard to describe in visual thing, but it's like corkscrew loop. And then the second loop goes back farther. It's a bigger loop, if you will. And then the third one goes back as well to the first one, but then it leaves. So it's, but like that is a great show, but like, we don't have enough time to talk about how great that show is, but it is 3 seasons and it is very heavy. It's very meaty. It's very German, but it was really good.
Yeah. You got one worth mentioning, Sean?
Yeah, actually, the loop, speaking of sort of the science-y loops, the one I pulled out was Cause and Effect, which is a season 5 episode of Star Trek, The Next Generation, which originally aired, I guess, right around the time the script for Groundhog Day was being written and revised in early 92. So it came out about a year before Groundhog Day, but it was the Starship Enterprise in its voyage through the galaxy gets caught in a time loop.
And a great opening too.
Yeah.
Like the ship that's our main thing in the show and it blows up. It's like, that's not supposed to happen.
I don't remember seeing it originally, but I recently did, or within the past few years, did a rewatch of, The Next Generation, the whole series. And it's a different kind of effect watching it kind of streaming straight through. Because I think the way it's originally cut is before each of the commercial breaks, the ship blows up.
I believe so, yeah.
So you see like Enterprise blows up and then cut to commercial. You're like, is it going to come back? What's going to happen? Is the series over? Who knows? You have to stay tuned to find out. So Cause and Effect from Next Generation.
My time loop of this week would be what I think is the latest one, most recent. A quick interruption from editing. Because at the time I recorded this episode, yes, it was the latest, but there's been at least one more time loop thing since the movie Christmas Again, which I think I mentioned in a later episode. Which is an episode of What If, episode 104. What if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands? Which is not a Connors loop. It's not morality. It is deliberate, it is magical, and the character is doing it to himself because he wants to fix the car accident.
I feel like you should call that the H.G. Wells loop.
From what?
Like the time machine,
But
right?
In the original story, he's not doing that. That's a movie part.
Oh, the movie. Yeah, the Guy Pearce loop.
Movie. Yeah, they have
so it's
that.
a Guy Pearce loop.
The Pearce loop, yeah.
The Pearce loop, yeah.
See, my only complaint with that episode was that like they never set up Rachel McAdams as like that much of a love interest in the Doctor Strange movie.
Yeah, she's barely in there.
You kind of forget about her, and you're like, he's never even brought her up. He's like in our main timeline. Like, I'm sure like she didn't get dusted, or if she get dusted, doesn't matter. She's brought back. Has he ever brought her to the sanctum? Like, hey, check it out. This is where I do my magic at. Like, she's never involved. So it's like, it was such a weird thing for her to be like, I gotta save her. I'm like, what the hell? Whatever, she a big
Yeah, it's like I guess I call it a 1201 loop, maybe. It's 12:01 p.m. and 12:01, the TV movie, were sort of about trying to break out of the loop, the science fiction side. The short film is I love that thing.
Because there's an interesting property of all these loops is that so everything's the same, or almost everything's the same, because that's why it's a loop. I mean, if everything was different, that's the normal flow of time. But then there's always like the key difference. There's the key thing that has to change, usually to get in the Groundhog Day morality type loop is kind of an inner personal change you need to make, or even in the a Pierce loop, there's a technological change or something you have to figure out. Like something needs to change in a storyline that's premised on everything being the same.
But yeah, logically that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's one of the things, my problems, I guess, with like time crimes is that nothing can change. It just happens.
Yeah.
And so the main character, even though he makes choices, his choices are based on what's already happened and will happen. And it becomes kind of strange because ultimately he's not growing as a person. He doesn't really have an arc, but also I like the movie. So I don't know. And we'll keep working on the classification system as well, because there's lots of different versions of time loops and time loop adjacent stories.
If you ever get Jim O'Kane on, ask him about Travelers. Because no, he was the only person I knew that like watched it along with me. And I remember like the finale, I think, was like either right around New Year's Day. I just remember like spending New Year's Day like talking and be like, that was a really good show. So, and that had to do with time travel and stuff. So.
There's going to be a lot of time loops to cover. Oddly enough, there are more than I will have time for, because there's more than there are minutes in this movie, but I will try. Otherwise, I will also link to I have an IMDb list where I keep them all.
Yeah, I say at the end, like just like on the website, just like have a scrolling list, like a credits list.
I'll do an audio list when we get to the credits. Although the credits in this movie aren't very long, so I won't need a lot of filler.
Yeah, there you go. There's your filler and bonus stuff.
Here's
just
a
like
list of all of the movies and TV shows and
in alphabetical order. You just say it with a deadpan voice.
I need to also read what is the sort of official first time loop. Was a story called The Defense of Someone. I forget the full title.
Was this like an old book? Are we talking like 1700s?
No, it's from like the early 1900s.
Okay.
But TV Tropes credits it as the first time loop, and I don't think anyone's found an earlier one as such.
Yeah. Imagine there was a Greek drama.
Well, arguably Sisyphus is the first time loop, because his punishment is he has to push the rock up the hill, and then it has to just do it again and do it again.
Yeah, I would say what's older, that or the concept of the Ouroboros, like eating its own?
Right. Yeah, that's one of the things I will have to figure out, because I got to find new things to say about Groundhog Day that I haven't said before.
Oh man, what a challenge!
I could just copy and paste from blog entries and never say anything new, but I don't want to do that.
That's not you.
Right.
That's not your play.
Exactly. I will reference those things, of course, but not all the time. That's too much. In the meantime, if the listeners want to hear you, we'll start with Sean this time. Sean, where can they hear more of you?
Yeah, sure. You can check me out. My current show that I do with my brother Brian is Next Scene Podcast. We're at nextscenepod.com and at Next Scene Pod on the social media. And what we do is take on pop culture one scene at a time. Usually it's a scene from a film, but sometimes we're talking about an episode of a television show or a song from an album, a chapter from a book. We talk about that one scene, and then for the next episode, it's on to the next scene. So that's at nextscenepod.com.
And Dave?
Yeah, I'm from 5 Minutes of Mystery, where I cover the 1999 superhero comedy ensemble Mystery Men. And I was on a few episodes of Next Scene Podcast where I don't know, we never talked about a scene. You just told me to talk about Shane Black, and then we just talked a lot about Shane Black movies. So
yeah,
that's on you, Sean.
Sean and Brian don't understand their own premise.
No, they don't. I was like, all right, we'll cover the whole film, I guess.
It's a work in progress. That's all. Yeah.
So thank you for listening. The Groundhog Day Project, Minute by Minute, is just one part of an existential trilogy of podcasts. Tune in every Tuesday for Minutia Ex Machina, every Wednesday for more Groundhog Day, and every Thursday for Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Minute. Follow this show on Twitter at Groundhog Day MXM and on Instagram and Facebook at Groundhog Day Project. This has been a production of Lemming Drop Studio. You can find links to more at lemmingdrops.com or join the Facebook group Lemming Drop Studio Tour. Also, you can support all my shows at patreon.com/lemmingdrops, where I have a bonus show, Twin Peaks Radio, and bonus reviews occasionally. Until next time.
First, I play the game by the rules from 1 to 10.
traveling through time.
What is wrong in the end which never comes? Or which comes again and again, laughing, like waves?
I don't know. How do you sleep at night? You've never seen Groundhog Day?
Yeah, you know Groundhog Day is not a documentary.
Man, are you hungry? I haven't eaten since later this afternoon.
Now, I realize the one problem with the three of us talking about Groundhog Day is that was a very short episode, I think, so far. Yeah. There is more to talk about.